So today I'm going to show you how to make a brooch bouquet. You'll see a lot of different methods on YouTube, and I've tried different techniques, and basically this is the one that I've come up with after making, probably close to 800 or 900 bouquets over the last few years, that I think works the best. It's the most secured, has to make a good shape of a bouquet, and it also doesn't damage the brooches. So if down the road you ever want to take it apart and sell them or use them for something else, you haven't ruined them. The other thing is there's brooches as well as earrings. Every time I put in earrings, I want to make sure that I put in the matching pair if I possibly can, so that if down the road you do want to take it apart, you actually have a pair of earrings to keep the value a little bit nicer. Most of these are vintage pieces. There's a few new pieces in here. Most of them are definitely vintage. This one particularly I bought from a designer who actually made them herself. So these, sometimes you can find good pieces like that to add to your bouquet. The first thing to do is you want your tools. So perfect tool is a round needle nose pliers. They're not your typical needle nose where they have a flat inside edge. This one's completely round. You can find these at any hobby store. Hardware stores, they usually don't stock them. So you either have to order them online or you can find them from like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. The other thing is you need your wires. I like 3 thicknesses of wires. So this is the first one. This is a 10 gauge. And then you'll want a 12 gauge. And then you want the thinnest, which is a 14 gauge. So those are the 3 thicknesses. They're really important you have the 3 sizes. The smallest, 14 gauge, is for earrings because it's easy, soft to work with. The middle-sized one, the 12 gauge, is for some of the medium-sized pieces, like maybe this one. And then the heaviest one is for the largest pieces, which is this. Occasionally, if you have a really big piece, sometimes you might even want to use 2 of these, but one usually will do the trick most of the time. So to start off making a bouquet, pick one of your brooches. You want to close the pin, make sure they're sealed and the pin is completely closed. Then you want to take the appropriate size wire. You want to take your needle nose pliers and just make a loop. Real simple, just like that. You start with the end where the hook, the clasp of the brooch is for the pin, and you want to hook it in there. You may have to adjust it a little bit. You want it to fit pretty nicely. And then you want to take your pliers and you just want to close it gently. Some of these are older pieces. You don't want to break them, so you want to close it nicely like that just to secure it. Get these out of my way. So you can secure it like that. Then you want to put this right up against the hinged part of the pin. You might have to make a little bit of adjustments here. And then you want to bend it around the head like this. Keep your thumb there really tight. This is the definite trick. You want to pre-bend this wire. You don't want to just crank it over. It's going to make a sharp bend. You want to do a soft bend. So here you want to just sort of run your hand up. It's definitely going to take some muscle and make this a bit of a bend. Then when you come around, you're going to go between the pin and the wire you just put on. You don't want to go under the wire. You want to go between the two, as you can see. And see, now when I pull it, it stays a nice soft bend. Pull it down tight so it looks like this. This is very critical. You want this point as snug as possible. And then go straight. And you can see it secures it quite nicely. Then you just straighten the wire back out again. So you have your brooch on a wire. Super fast, nice and secured, and it's definitely stiff so you can use it. Usually I'll put these into a vase so that I have, and here's the vase I'll get right here. So there's my vase, and I'll start sticking them in the vases so that they're ready to go. Take the next one, same thing, make sure your pin is closed. Now this is a little bit different of a pin style. You have this space underneath it, and it's just anchored in the center. So with this one, same thing, I'm going to take one of my heavier wires. I'm going to make the loop. Now this one I'm going to hook the loop right to the base, right there. Now holding it with your fingers so it's not flopping around, you want to, again, tighten this down, being careful not to damage the brooch at all. Then again, you're going to just hold it with your thumb, come around, you want to get underneath this other side. Takes a little finesse. Now with this one, you have a couple of different options. You can either come through under the pin here, or you can just come down this side. Because I'm trying to use the stiffest wire possible and I have enough space over here, I'm going to come down the side and then I'm going to twist it. So there it is. And again, that's all you had to do. It's a couple easy strokes. It's nice and secured. Looks good. Goes in the vase. Another style of brooch back would be this one. Again, close your pin. Now this one is, it's actually made out of leather, so it's a kind of interesting piece. It has a little bit of flex to it. But this one is less expensive one, so this pin is actually just glued on the back. So this one takes a little more work, so I'm going to use a medium-sized wire. I'm going to close this. I'm going to make this loop a little bit bigger, because what I'm doing with this one is I'm going around the clipped end like this. There's nothing to get underneath because it's glued. So now I want to crimp it. And this you want to crimp it and crimp it, crimp it, so it's definitely going to hang on there, so you can see. Same thing, you want to take your thumb, put it up against this one, bend it out. Now this is the thinner wire, so it's going to bend a little bit easier. Pre-bend it like I showed you before. Just run your finger along it and just kind of arch that. Go under the pin, between the wire you just did is underneath and the pin's on top. Pull this through and pull this nice and snug. And then twist it at 90 degrees. And there it is, all nice and anchored. And again, you want this nice and tight because it can't go underneath. So you want to make sure that doesn't fall off later. Straighten your wire and that one's ready to go too. Let's see, I'll do another one. So this one again is a little bit smaller piece. It's got enough loops underneath. So I want to take a medium-sized wire, twist it, put it right up under there, hold it tightly, crimp it down, go underneath. This one, what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to pre-bend it, and I'm actually going to go under the wire again with that one into the pin, pull it straight, looks like that, straighten it back out again. That one's ready to go too. Let's show you how to do an earring. So here's an earring that's good. Here's a regular clip-on earring. Just has the clip. Now it has this little shank underneath that sticks up. So you want to open the earring, take your thinnest wire. Now you're not going to pre-bend this one. What you're going to do is lay it where it sticks out about an inch and a half or so. Loop it underneath your clasp. Hold your thumb, go around one more time. So you have a nice loop around. The end you're going to cross over to your left side. The other end you're going to cross over this way. So it's got a nice crossed over. Then you're going to close your earring, cross them over again. Now on these earrings, on the clips, you'll have a little narrow spot right here towards the base. Take advantage of that. Once you cross them, you want to start twisting your earring. And keep twisting it. And these are the thinner wires, so they'll work pretty nicely. And usually you'll come out pretty stiff. If it's not holding it really stiffly and you have a little flop going on, which sometimes happens, you just want to take your pinchers here and you just want to, with the pliers, and just tighten it up a little bit more. And sometimes that'll tighten it up. So there's an earring all ready to go. Okay, I'm going to finish wiring all these up and then I'll come back and start showing you how to put them together. Okay, so I've gotten almost all of the brooches put on wires, so here they are in the vase. There's a few last ones that I wanted to show you a little bit different techniques. So here's another earring. It's slightly different than the normal with the big clip on it. This has the littler clip like this. So the shank on this one's a little bit narrower. Just want to make sure you have enough space you can get a wire in there. Take your narrow wire, again about 1.5 inches or so, and you go right underneath. Hold it with your thumb so you can get it as tight as you can without damaging the earring, of course. And then loop it around again. Sometimes you can only loop it around once, that's okay. And I'll show you that in a second. And then you cross them underneath, close the earring over it. So there I closed the earring. These are a little touchier just because they're a lot thinner to work with than that big clip on a normal earring. Twist it around. It looks kind of a little bit of a mess, but it's holding it nicely. If you needed to crimp it to get it a little tighter, if it's a little sloppy, on the back side of the earring where the shank is, it's pretty narrow, so you can just go in here with your pliers and just tighten it up a little bit and get it nice and snug. So that one's done. Here's another style. So this is another earring. This one will look really nice in her bouquet, and it has the bigger flap on it. But notice on this one, it doesn't have any place to put the wire. It's kind of anchored right to the base of the earring. So on this one, we just don't want a lot of bulky wire showing. So we're just going to flip it over and just not do a double loop. We're just going to cross it once, flop this down, cross them again, and then twist them. Make sure it's nice and straight. So there you can see we have very, very little bit of wire that's showing. Now this one's normally in gold, so I could have done this in a gold wire. I have silver, gold, brown, and green wires. So I like to use the different colors just so it goes with, but this whole bouquet I'm going to do with silver wires. Here's another problem that you might run into. This particular brooch, the clasp is broken. So it's just, so in the little spinning part, which I'll show you on this one, so in this little spinning part right here that closes the end over the pin, when that pops off, it's just a little hook. So it looks like this. So this one's sort of already damaged. You can see somebody's already glued this back on it. So sometimes you're just not going to win on some of these. So get the pin in there. You have to open that just a smidgy. Get that in there. Once you get it in, you just kind of want to bend it over so the pin's definitely on there. Crimp that little hook down so that it's not, I'm kind of messing it up there. So you're going to crimp it over so it's not going to come unpinned on you while it's in the bouquet. And it's already been damaged, so doing a little bit extra like this to it isn't really going to do it. So that should hook it pretty well there. In these cases, sometimes you might want to use regular old needle nose pliers. It does have the flat inside, so that might be a little bit easier to get a grip on here and get that closed down. So having a variety of tools is definitely going to be helpful. There we go. So I crimped that down, so that's going to keep the pin in place. Then basically, just going to take, again, the wire, use the round nose pliers, make your loop. Same thing, just hook it there. Now be careful, this one's going to use a little bit more delicate. Come underneath this one. Pre-bend it. Oops, see, now it came undone, so you just got to kind of mess with these. You're going to come and cross these every so often, so you just kind of have to mess with them until you're going to get them. So I think I got it crimped down there a little bit better. Come that in there. There you go. So that one's ready to go. Another one you might come across is this style. This is definitely more of a made in China style brooch. It has just these little, it doesn't actually have the type that spins to close the pin. It just has a little hook. So if you're getting one of these are really inexpensive, so doing a little bit of damage to them isn't the end of the world, I don't think. So you want to open this up so this slot is got a little bit more space in it. I'm going to close this pin, this side down just a teeny bit, just so you have a little bit more room to work. Then you're going to take your wire, and you're going to actually set the wire inside where the pin is. Otherwise it's going to pop off pretty easily. Same thing, you want to crimp it down. You can even close this down a little bit. And again, this one's glued on, so it doesn't have anything to really grip hold of, so you got to be a little more careful. Wrap it around the back end, pre-bend it, get it between, you can see in there, get between the pin and the wire you're wrapping. You don't want to go under both, you just want to go under the pin. Get that in there and get that snug and flipped. There you go. That one's good to go. Next one I wanted to show you is this one. This one was one that somebody made. So these are just parts that they put together. It's on a base that this sort of has wires in it. It's a little flimsy in the middle. It's only got some wires that hold it together, and then it's got the pin back. Couple options. You could wrap it around the base completely, or you can use the pin as the attachment. Either way would work actually pretty well. I still would probably use the pin direction. So you want to flip this around. Now in this case, when you put this on here, you want to get that seated so there's no big gaps here. So you might want to go a little bit of an angle instead of going straight across. Get that crimped. And then you got to be a little more careful and hang on to this base part, because otherwise it's just going to pull right off. Get around the end. Pre-bend it under the pin, pull it snug, and straighten it out. And again, as long as it's on there, it's not flopping around, you're in good shape. Another one I want to show you was this one I did, but it's a little floppy. This wire is a little thin. I want to add a second wire to it. I could have put a thicker wire on this one, which I probably should have done. However, with this one, I just wanted to show you the other option. So you pre-bend your wire again. Then you're going to just slip it under the opposite side of the pin. This gets a little bulky, so I don't recommend this unless you really have to do it. Just wanted to show you this method. Flip it around under the pin again. Loop it, under we go. And when you come back up, what you want to do is you want to take these two wires and you're just going to twist them to make one. And that'll make it nice and strong. So to do that, you just want to put your hand between the two like this, hold it, and then you're slowly pulling your hand away as you're twisting the brooch. Just to get a nice spiral. Keep going it till you're all the way to the end. And now it's a lot stiffer. Put that in my vase. Last one I want to show you is, what I would use this for normally is a boutonniere, because it's a nice flower that has a stem on it. With this, the back's a little different because you've got the stem has the pin opposed to the head itself. So with this particular one, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a green wire. Let me grab one of the heavier green wires in my bin over here. So here's a green aluminum wire. And again, the aluminum's nice. They bend pretty well. You can buy them in rolls. I get 40 or 50 feet per roll. It's a lot less expensive. I order them online. If you go to the hobby store, this wire is quite expensive. It'll really start adding up on you. So I prefer to get them online, and I'll buy them in bigger lots because I go through a lot of these. So on this, you want to do the same thing with your bend your wire. You're going to loop it under the hook side of the pin. You're going to be a little more careful with this one because you don't want it to show from the front. So you want to make sure when you're crimping it, it's going to be hidden by that. Then instead of going underneath this and have it anchored way at this point, I'm going to actually wrap it where it's going to be under the head of the flower. And I'm going to come around this way. So the head of the flower is going to really hide that wire, but it's a little more secured than just putting it on the pin. So sometimes that might be a better way to go. Each brooch you get, you want to sort of analyze it and decide what the best way to put your wire on. Sometimes you want to do it the regular way. Sometimes you want to do it a little different. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take all these pretty brooches that I just put in my vase to make my bouquet and start putting them together. What you want to do when you start off with is take some of the little bit on the larger side pieces, especially ones that are maybe less expensive or you're not as totally in love with as other ones. So I'm going to take, any of these daisy shaped ones are usually a little less expensive. And you're going to start with two. You can kind of interlock their petals a little bit. Cross the stems underneath, a couple inches down. Hold it like that. And then you're just going to start twisting them together. Hold the base right here. Don't let that go. And then just start doing this action all the way down to the bottom like that. And there's your first two. They're held together. They're nice and firm. So that's the start. Then you're going to take your next piece. I think I'll go with this purple one. And I'm just going to sort of nest that in so it's sort of makes a trio. Same thing, hold it at the base. You're going to start wrapping it. You're going to have to wrap it a little bit differently here. And go all the way down to the bottom. We're going to do some different stuff at the end here, so don't be too worried about making that perfect. And now you've got three. Okay, now we're going to add a fourth one. So let's see, this is another pretty good sized one. I'm going to put this one on the other side of the black and white so they're not together. I'm going to pull that down just a little bit so it gets tucked under. And you kind of play with them and make sure that they're kind of seated together so they're sort of nice and tight as a little unit. Again, grip them together underneath. This is a little heavier wire, so it's going to take a little more muscle. Keep a hold with your right hand, or I'm left-handed, so whichever hand you're using, hold on to that. Don't let that go. And then just twist it all the way down to the bottom. Okay, now we got 4 together. That's pretty easy. Let's see, I'm going to put something over in this hole. Let's see, I'm going to take one of these turquoise ones. Haven't put those in yet. Again, it has a stem, so I might want to just push the stem. They bend, they're pretty soft, so just push the stem so it kind of goes down a little so they tuck underneath. Put that in there. Around we go. Okay, now we got 4. So at some point, and you'll do this several times through the process, is you want to look at it, make sure that your colors are balanced and everything, but to make sure it doesn't get lopsided, because you'll see right now that it's getting a little lopsided. There's a little more brooches on this side. My stem is over to this side. If you set it upside down on your work area and look at it this direction, you can kind of see, you know, where you need to add the next brooch. So for this one, the stem is kind of over to this side, so I want to start adding brooches to this side. Just as I keep building around and around, you want their stem to stay as centered as possible. So just turn it upside down and kind of balance it out. You can sort of move your stem around a little bit. So now I'm going to add more to this side. So to that one, I need another turquoise. So let's go with this one. Just again, you want to tuck it in. Sometimes you'll tuck it under. Usually I'll tuck it to the top. You don't want to cover stuff up too much at this point, because we'll do some other techniques as we start getting this bigger that I'll show you how to make things work in there as you're getting it finished up and you want to put your final pieces in. Okay, as you start wrapping, you'll notice that you want to sort of wrap your wire so that it goes in these grooves, so you don't have a big wad, that you try to keep your stem as even and the same thickness all the way down. So there we go. Again, you want to look at it upside down. Which side do I need to put another bouquet brooch on? You can see this is probably here and kind of building on that side. So let's see, let's do another black and white piece. Again, this one has a stem, so I'm going to just lower that a little bit so it tucks underneath. I'll put that right up in there. Okay, and there we go. It's starting to look like a bouquet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to put these in, and then I'll come back and show you some tricks at the end. Okay, so now I have most of it put together. There's what it looks like. Pretty round for the most part. We're going to finish it off now. So I turned it upside down one more time, looked at the bottom. My stem's coming out of the middle. Looks pretty good all the way around. You want to kind of make sure that it's round. You can kind of push it in a little bit if you need to. Make sure a lot of these little stems and stuff are tucked away. Last things now I'm going to put in these last few pieces, which are all the small ones and mostly earrings and that sort of thing, or any featured pieces that I want to be sure that sort of gets featured. For example, this one, I think I have 2 of these in this bouquet because these are really good colors for her. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill some of these spaces. Once you've got your basic shape all put together, now I'm going to slide this into this kind of like more of a hole and tuck that right in. I think that's going to be a nice spot. Again, wrap it around. And you can see that my stem is starting to get thicker. And it goes down narrow. We're going to take care of this end in a little bit. So this is the main stem you want to watch for. This piece, I really like this one. It's kind of different. It's kind of a spider shape, which I think works good for her piece. Find a spot in here that's kind of lacking some red. I think this piece spots right here is really nice. And this is why you don't want to put big ones in at the end. You'd rather put a little bit smaller pieces in because they're going to cover up some of the other ones. So you don't want to, some of these base ones you don't want to have like some of your favorites in there because they're going to end up getting covered up. So here's another one. It's kind of an iridescent purple that I think looks really great. I have an iridescent purple one over here, so I don't want it too close to that one. And you just kind of just spin it around and see what looks. Stick it in a couple spots, like tuck it in. Here's a little spot I can tuck it in. Thread it through so it fits in there nicely. You know, see, put it next to it. Say, oh, do I like it there? Yeah, I think that looks fine. Twist that wire around so it's nice and secured. And let's find another one. Here's another kind of iridescent purple. Where's another good spot for that? Let's put that maybe right in the middle here, right between the red and the black ones. Sorry, it's kind of hard to do this camera and do this bouquet at the same time. So wrap that around. There we go. And let's see, some of these, they're not my favorites, but they'll fill in some good spots. So maybe I'll put these kind of over to the sides a little bit. I usually do the earrings at the same time. So I just did one earring. I want to make sure the other earring's going to go on the other side, so it's not going to be right next to each other, looking too obvious like it was an earring. Put that around. And then I'm getting down to some of the smaller ones. So here's a really nice little black and white piece. I can put that, let's see, where's a good spot for that? And maybe you're just right here. And these you're going to kind of let them sit up a little bit. You want to give some height to your bouquet at this point. This is where your base is done. Now you want to finish it off with these smaller pieces to give it a little more dimension. Let's take, here's another little purple one. You need a purple one over here. Slide that right in that little spot between them. Kind of nestle it down in just a little bit so it doesn't stick up too much. And again, this is kind of an artistic approach. So you really want to kind of analyze it, see what you like. If there's a piece you don't like, you can cut it out, put it someplace else, take it out altogether. Here's another black and white one I like. Let's put that over here. Okay, so I'm going to continue putting these last few pieces in, and then I'll check back. Okay, so I'm finished putting all this together now. Here's the bouquet. You can see it's pretty round, looks pretty good. I look at it from all angles, make sure your colors are well mixed, however you want it, to make sure it looks nice. It's got more of a domed shape to it, and I'm going to dome it more when I finish it too. I'm going to leave it a little bit flatter here for the moment. But basically you just, again, put it upside down. You can kind of take your hands, look around, make sure that it looks nice and round. Kind of squish it together if you need to, just to kind of shape it. Or you can start bending these wires. So get in here and, don't be a little gentle, but you don't have to go crazy. And just make sure that everything looks nice. It's nice and firm. It's not shaking around. You don't have any rattles at all. And then here's your stem. So it's going to be thicker at the base. It's going to taper down. And then at this end, you're going to get some of these first wires that you started with. You really don't want it this long. So typically you want your bouquet roughly about that long. So I'd say, let's see, here's a tape measure. So that's around, let's see if I put it up straight. So that's around 7 inches or so. 6-7 inches, I'd say, is a good length. So I'm going to take it to about, let's say here. The smaller the bouquet, you want to sort of balance this out. So you want to put your thumb where you want the end of the stem to start. And then you're going to untwist some of these longest wires. This is why I said don't be too worried about how you did this bottom thing, because you're going to mess it up anyway. So you're going to sort of spray them all apart like that. Keep your thumb there so you have your part, your starting point, and wrap this one around. So now you have that's your spot. Take this wire and kind of wrap it down. And these you're going to kind of unwrap them, but you're going to wrap them around in a circle so that they're still heading in the same direction as the wires when they were being wrapped the first time. So just take all these, wrap them around. You don't have to be super neat about it because you are going to end up covering this up, but you don't want it bulky and out of shape either. So just take all these, bend them right over. The short ones just can be bent over. Then take your pliers. Some of these are kind of in weird spots. You want to just twist them around, make sure that there's nothing poking out, that they're tucked in there. There's nothing jamming out here. So these look all pretty good. And the end is nice and stubby now, and it's about the right length. Now to smooth all this off, because you're going to want this in a nice smooth thing, so when you're wrapping it with your ribbon that you're not going to feel this lumpy stuff, plus you're going to want to even this out a little bit. So one of the things I found out is you're going to work with your bouquet on its head quite a bit. But you want to be careful with that because these are some nice delicate pieces, and especially if there's a few right at the top here that have some stones or something in it, that can easily start plopping this around and you're going to start damaging something. So what I found is I just bought a Lazy Susan. It's just a glass Lazy Susan. I bought the smallest one I could find on eBay, and then I put some foam on it and just attached it with some duct tape. So this is a nice soft surface, as you can see, and it spins very easily. And I can put my bouquet right on there and spin it like crazy, and it works really nice. And that way I'm protecting it and I'm not plopping it up and down a whole bunch. So this, I think, is a really ideal. Next thing you're going to do is straight old duct tape. Again, you know, the rule says if you can't fix it with duct tape, you can't fix it. So duct tape works for this too. Rip off a few inches, and I'm just going to put it on the base. You want to make sure this little end is going to get nice and wrapped up. Fold it around, squish it down tight. Take another piece, put it on there, tuck the ends, wrap it around. Another piece. So you want to do this 3-4 times. Basically, it's your judgment. You just want to get it down to where, you know, you're not going to feel those wires. It's going to be pretty, you know, nice and protected just to get that little end done. From this point on, now you're going to take longer pieces of duct tape. So I would say, how long is this? Probably 2 feet or so worth of duct tape. Whatever, you know, is easier for you to handle. You're going to start right here at the top, or the end of it, to make sure your little edges are down. And this is where the Lazy Susans really comes in handy. So now you just spin it. Spin it and slowly start wrapping it down. And you want to pull this, keep this tight. You don't want to have a bunch of gaps. In fact, it's really good if you get your hand in here and squish that right in there. You want to fill all those gaps in with the tape. And wrap it all the way down like that. And you're going to keep on doing that till you've wrapped this completely right here to the base where the twisting starts happening. And you want to ideally create this where it's a pretty even taper. You don't want any lumps and bumps in it. You want it where you're handling it and it feels pretty smooth. A little bit of lumps isn't too bad, but you want it as smooth as you can get. So I'm going to finish wrapping this and then we'll come back. Okay, so this is pretty well wrapped. As you can see, it's wrapped right up to the base. It's okay to make the base. It's going to be a little bit narrower because we're going to start attaching some ribbons here, so you don't want that too thick. You're going to end up tapering it a little bit more. But you can see it's all wrapped. You can kind of pick it up with your hands, go around, squish it in really good, make sure it feels pretty good. There's no, you know, it's pretty even. There's nothing, no weird bends or anything in it. So that's it for that. Next thing is the ribbon. We'll come back and start working on the ribbon. Okay, so now it's time to finish the bouquet. So I got word back from the client. She would like to go with this black ribbon. This one is one of my favorites. It's sort of a soft cotton crinkly ribbon, so it's very easy to work with and super soft. You can buy it. Actually, this comes from Michael's craft store. And these bolts are, let's see, they're 2.5 inches wide and they're 10 yards per bolt. Probably you use at least a whole bolt, maybe a little bit extra. And the 2.5 inch wide ribbon is really a great size for this sort of thing. So I have my ruler, so I lay a ruler out so I have my dimensions easily. Get my scissors. And then I also have a bunch of this florist wire. So this is really thin florist wire. I have this cut to 4-inch lengths. And I use this little shot glass to hold it in. It works out perfectly. So what I'm going to start to do is start making my ribbon loops. So you want to lay this out. I'm going to go to 7 inches on this particular bouquet. So I usually go anywhere between 5 and 7 inches, depending on the size of the bouquet and the ribbon type. The stiffer ribbons, sometimes you need a little bit more to work with. So I'm going to say it's 7 inches, pinch it with your finger, bend it. This is wired ribbon, has the wire on the edges, which is also my favorite. You can use the non-wired, but I don't think it turns out quite as nice. So now you're going to fold it over so you have one loop that's 7 inches long. You're going to flip it over, fold that there. Make another loop that's 7 inches long, fold it over again. This softer ribbon's a little harder to work with when you're making these loops, but in the end it turns out really pretty. Flip it over one more time and do a third loop. Most of the time you're going to do 3 loops. If the ribbon is very heavy, 2 is all you're going to be able to work with. And you want to cut that right off. So now you have 3 loops. Your cut ends and everything are right here. You want to get them sort of lined up. Like that. So that all your ends are nice and even. And then you're going to sort of zigzag them or scallop them together to make them sort of in a little grouping. Pinch them about 1/2 inch or so down. Take one of your wired florist wires. You're going to hold it with your finger like this. Hold it nice and tight. This one you're going to pull tight. So you want to hold this tight too. And then you're going to wrap it around once, as tight as you can. Bring them together. Twist them a couple times, kind of like a twist tie. open the wire and wrap it back around so you don't have any pointy ends. This is the part that will definitely get you to bleed. Sometimes those, as you're working with this, one will poke you right in the thumb. So in the end, you're just going to do this little cluster of 3 loops that's twist tied about a 1/2 inch. You want to stay far enough from the end that these aren't going to actually pull out if you pull them too vigorously. So let's do that one more time. Measure off your 7 inches, pinch it off, fold it over, lay it flat, flip it and fold it again. Make your 7-inch loop that lines up with the last one. You see how you're going to go through ribbon here pretty darn fast. A good bouquet is going to take quite a few yards of ribbon. You don't want to be stingy at this point. Cut it off. Line up make sure it's not twisted. You want to keep it flat. Get them lined up nicely. Gather them up. Now if you're doing satin ribbon, this gathering up process is going to be pretty precise as far as like folded. This is so soft you sort of just bunch it almost. Come down, hold that really, really tight so you can pull this hard, wrap it around because you want that as tight as possible. Come together, twist it a couple times, split it, wrap it back around. And there's my second one. So I'm going to do this a bunch more times and then we'll come back. Okay, we're back. So I've made a whole bunch of these. I think I made about 9, which should be plenty. Now we're back to the Lazy Susan one more time. Put this right on there. To start off with, you want to cover the end. I'm going to use black duct tape since she's using black ribbon. If she was using a lighter colored ribbon, I would use white duct tape. So you want to, first of all, find the end of your duct tape. Oh boy. Well, there's always that problem. Somewhere on here, and I will find it. I think I found it. There it is. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to attach some loops. So you want to take off, that was about 5 inches or so, and you're going to take some of your ribbon and you're just going to overlap some of that so that it's stuck on there nicely. Put that part way down, about halfway, because you're just going to cover the end up here, and just fold it right over. Tuck that underneath, wrap your duct tape around so it's holding it, tuck that back, and wrap around. Now you've got your end covered. Take these 2 ends, this is where the wire really comes in handy, of your ribbon. So you can get your wire so it's poking out like that, and just fold it down so that it's nice and tight around the base. Now I like to make it extra padded, so I'm going to take take some more duct tape. Again, you just lay it right there so it's part on, part off. Your ribbon, make sure it's nice and stuck on there. Put this on the other direction. Stick it on, fold it over. Again, you're going to wrap this under, wrap around, tuck this under this way, wrap around, get it nice and tight. Take your 2 ends and just get them down there so that they're out of the way and you have a nice end. So that's going to look great. Everything looks good on that one. I'm also going to finish wrapping this with just one quick layer of black duct tape, just so there's no white that's going to accidentally, if it ends up showing through, which it really shouldn't, but just in case, a little extra is not going to do anything bad here. Mostly just kind of down around the base here. Okay, so one more layer of duct tape. There we go. Now the next thing I'm going to do is also cut some small strips of duct tape. So I'm just going to cut about a 1/2 inch pieces. I'm just going to kind of tack them to the end of my table here so I can get them quickly. Cut about 7 or so of these. And this is going to be used for when you're doing the final wrap around the handle, just so that your ribbon's not going to slip over time, because it is going to be handled. It is the handle and all. So I'm going to cut one more of these. And it can start to slide, so you want to make sure that's not going to happen. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to start attaching our ribbon loops. So you want to take another piece of duct tape, and I'd say this about 3 inches or so, like this. Take one ribbon loop. Now you're going to, this is sort of bunched up, but if they're folded, you want to make sure that the end is poking the same direction every time. You're going to put your duct tape just a little bit past where the wire is. And make sure that's pressed on there like that. This first one, I can do 3. You want to put the next one right next to the first one. One more. And again, right next to that one, and so that the wire is just being covered up by the tape. So you have 3 bundles all right nice tight together. Make sure that they're attached, stuck down good. Now holding them upside down like this, we're going to bend it at the base, and we're going to put it right in the bottom here. So you want to make sure that's nice and tight. This duct tape gets stuck down. Pull this nice and just pull this tight. Keep it right at the base. Stick your duct tape on that side, and then just kind of squish your duct tape all around. Make sure it's all on there. And there's your first 3, just like that. Next one, same thing. About 3 inches or so of duct tape. Another one right there, just below the wire. One more here, just below the wire. Your third one, just below. Make sure they're all stuck on there really good. Now when you're positioning this one, you want this first one to lay right next to the one you just finished. So again, you want to kind of bend it and get it fitted in there. So you really want to look and make sure it lines right up. And you don't want the duct tape to come down over here. You want to keep the duct tape kind of up and out of the way. Stick that down. Pull this tight all the way around to the other side. There you go. So now we got next section. So now we have another strip right here. It's probably going to take 3 more, but I just kind of want to make sure it comes out right. So I'll take a little bit shorter piece, and I'm just going to do 2 on this one. 1, 2. Get that tucked right in there. Stick that on there. Wrap it tight. Yep, and see there's a space. 1 more is going to do it, so that's going to take 9 of those. Loops that I made. So 1 more. And again, you don't want to be stingy about this. You want to make sure you're getting plenty of ribbon around here. You want to fill this up nice and tight. When you do this final one wrapped around, you want to make sure, again, the end of your duct tape is above the other duct tape lines. You don't want it poking down in there. Just kind of clean that up all the way around. Pick it up and just really squeeze hard all the way around. This is where, if any of those wires are poking out, they're going to stick you. So you want to make sure that you're not going to feel any wires. Now once you've done this, what's going to happen, if you can see this, is you're going to have this part's going to see kind of a little more lumpy, and then it's going to all of a sudden take a jump and going to go narrower because all the ends of your ribbon loops are right there. So you're going to want to taper this section. So all these flat out of your way. Take some duct tape, maybe about 18 inches or so. And you're going to want to start just above. Not all the way at the base, but just a little bit up. And you're going to spin around, because what you're trying to do is taper from the lumpy part where the ribbon was to the smooth part of the handle. So up here, it's going to be a little gapey, and that's okay. You want to kind of just fold it in, create some bulk, and it's just going to kind of go up just a little bit more. And then you want to, again, hold it and see if that taper is even. And you want to feel it all the way up and down. Make sure that it's a nice smooth. It's going to be a little fatter at the top, a little bit narrower. You don't want anything too dramatic because it's going to be harder to wrap your handle. That would wrap with the ribbon at the end. Okay, now we've got this done. Now what we're going to do is take all these loops that we did. And this ribbon's pretty easy to work with, but you can pretty much tell that they're still in groups of 3. So you want to just lightly sort of pull them apart so that they're as even as possible. Make sure you're not crossing anything. You want them all straight. So you just want to go around and around. This is where the Lazy Susan, you can see, really comes in handy. Just straighten them all out. Like there's a crossed one. You want to get that over there. This will make it easier in the end. And make sure that they're all coming off of your base at a 90-degree angle. You don't want them, you know, coming over to one side or something. You want them all straight all the way around. So that's what you want that to look like when you're finished. Okay, now we're going to wrap the handle. So we're going to take more of this, and I'm on my second roll of 10 yards already, so this is definitely going to take about 15 yards altogether. Take a big strip of this. Now this is pretty soft, so in this case I'm actually going to fold over the top edge because I don't want this wired edge to show. Not that it's ugly, it's just, you know, I'd rather have a little cleaner look. So what I'm going to do is start off with the end. I'm going to take one of these little pieces of duct tape that I cut off earlier, stick it right there, take another one, and I'm going to kind of do this corner on an angle. I know this looks weird. Then I'm going to fold that corner over about a 45-degree angle and kind of flip it over so it's got that corner's nice and tucked out of the way, but you've got a little duct tape sticky spot to start, and then the rest of it's clean. So now when you start at the base of your ribbon, again, you've got your, make sure your edges are all down there. You're going to, you don't want the duct tape to show, so you want to make sure this folded edge is up at the top, not sticking up too high because you want this to be sticking up a little bit more. Starting with your duct tape, you can just anchor that right down. And then you just keep that top rolled over so your edge doesn't show. Start spinning it. This is where the Lazy Susan really comes in handy. Get it spun around. Get your bottom all nice and straight. Take another piece of the duct tape and just put it along the edge of the bottom part of the ribbon so it attaches to the rest of the duct tape, and that's going to hold that from slipping. Okay, now you just keep going with this. This ribbon is soft, so it's real easy to work with. Just keep that top rolled over, keep your bottom nice and smooth, and just around and around you go. And every few times you spin around, take another piece of duct tape, anchor it down just so it doesn't slip later, because this is going to be handled, because it's a handle. Keep going, keep going. It really goes pretty quickly. Now if this handle was tapered too much, it's going to start being more and more difficult to work. This ribbon's easier than most, but so sometimes you may just want to flip it over. If you have a double-faced ribbon, that could work for you. So each ribbon's a little bit different. Narrow ribbon's a little harder to work with too. So that's why I like this 2.5-inch size. Okay, I'm going to take another piece of duct tape, stick that right down. That'll be the last one because I'm right at the base now. And go around a little bit more here. Get my edge rolled over. Now when I'm getting down to the base like this, I'm going to flip this ribbon. I'm just going to flip it right over. I'm not going to be so concerned about the very bottom that that edge is going to show, because it's going to be covered up in the end. Get around so it's all the way down to the bottom to where it looks good. You want to kind of bunch it up there. And I'm going to use some black florist pins for this one. Make sure that's nice and tight and that you're putting a pin where it's going to go through all your layers into the duct tape. That's going to actually help hold it. You're going to have to wiggle a little bit. You're going to hit some aluminum wires in there. So you want that nice and firm, and that'll hold it in place. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to do some ribbon ends on this one that, you know, the bride can always cut off later, but I always put them on there. It's just something nice. Make them a little bit on the long side. Again, she can always cut them. So I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to do another one because I think the number 3 is always nice, and it's good to have 3 ends of this ribbon. So I'm going to cut another piece off here. So the first one is going to be the length off of the part I just spun around. So that's this one that's attached to the rest of the ribbon that wrapped the handle. And then another one that's just a single one. And I'm going to fold this in half and sort of in a half again. So I'm going to create sort of a little rope looking thing about halfway. Put it on the opposite side. Make sure it looks the way you like it. Take another florist ribbon and just pin and just stick it right in there. Make sure you get through all that. And you're going through a lot of stuff here, so you kind of want to shake it back and forth and wiggle it around, make sure it gets in there. And then on the other side, you want to just cross them over. Make sure you have everything anchored. Put another pin in. Okay, once you have all that in place. So now I have everything kind of pinned and held in place, as you can see. Then I'm just going to take these florist pins and I'm going to go all the way around the base in even spacing. Sometimes this goes in easy, sometimes this goes in difficult. You really just have to play with it. Sometimes I use pliers to really get them in there. This is actually going to be pretty easy. This ribbon, again, is one of the easier ones to work with. Some of the thicker satin ribbon is really difficult. You got a lot of stuff to go through, and the pins just don't want to go through it all. And then you're really having to fight to get everything in. So you want to adjust them, make sure that they're nice and even. Keep going. And you can put them as close together, as far apart as you want. I like to have a little bit of space, but pretty solid. And getting that one in there is a little harder, as you can see. There we go, got it. So again, you have to kind of wiggle, because remember, you're going to hit some aluminum wires, because that's where all your stuff is in your stems. So you really want to, sometimes you have to pull it out, push it back in, kind of feel where those wires are. Sometimes like that one, I'm just going to give up that spot for the second, move on to another one. So I was getting frustrated. Anyway, I'm going to finish pinning that, and then I'll come back. Okay, I finished pinning them. There's all the pins all the way around, pretty even. Next thing you're going to do is the end of this wired ribbon. You're going to have little wires that poke up out of the ends that you trimmed off. So you just want to pull this back just the littlest bit. Expose some of that wire. Just grab it gently with the wire cutters. Pull it a little further, an inch or so. Clip it right off, and then just pull it back straight. So now you've got a soft end. There's no wire in this little last half inch or inch or so. That's okay. Pull it back this one. Trim it again. And do that to all. There's 3 lengths of ribbon, so there's going to be 6 little wires you got to trim. You can see the little ends that just poke up, and you don't want anything that's going to poke anybody. There's my other one. So you can see that little end just poking right out there. Just pull it a little further out, clip it off, pull it straight. One more end, pull it up, pull it straight. So those are done. So now the last part is kind of the fun part. So this is where it all comes together. What I use is a ceramic chopstick. You can use any chopstick. You just want the kind that's got a blunt end. You don't want a pointed end. So basically a Chinese chopstick rather than a Japanese style. These are some nice ceramic ones we've got that I actually didn't like to eat with, but it works perfect for this process. So you just use this. Come around, get these handles out of the way. You're going to find your first loop to pick any spot, kind of separate a little bit. Find your first loop. Loop it, you're going to find a halfway point. So there's the halfway point right here. You're just going to bend it so the halfway point's kind of poking into the bouquet. Take your chopstick and just make sure they don't snag on any brooches. And you're just going to push it down into the wire part of the bouquet, all your wire stems that are in there. That's your first one. Take your next one, same thing. Find your halfway point, put it over that opening, and just kind of stick it down in there. You want to don't push it in too terribly far. You want a little bit of puff out of the top. Find your next one, go around. Again, the Lazy Susan really makes a big difference on this one, because you can imagine every time you're picking up and setting down this bouquet on its head, you could be damaging something and you don't even know it. Poke another one, make sure they're not, see, sometimes they snag, you just want to get those off. Go around. So we have 9 clusters of 3 loops. We have 27 loops that we're doing this with. But you can see it goes pretty quickly. Kind of adjust them as you go, it'll be easier. Next one. And then I also include some instructions and care information about each bouquet when I send it to a client. And it also tells them how to do this in case, like one of these loops snagged and pulled free, how they can just poke it right back in again. And you could use the end of a pencil that has, the eraser end of the pencil, a pen with obviously the cap put on, anything that has this sort of longer blunt end on it. It's because you don't want to damage anything, but you want to get something that's going to push it right in there. You can see how quickly this is going. And you're just going to kind of look. You can see, if you look in there, you can see the wires. You're just going right in those holes right there. Make sure your loops aren't twisted. You want them nice and straight. It's going to create a little bit nicer look overall. And you don't want to put too many loops in the same spot. You kind of want to keep it going where they're alternating between each section of wire stems underneath. Now, if you have a bouquet that has not a lot of bouquet brooches in it, therefore not a lot of stems, this process can get a little touchier just because there's less stems for all these loops to sort of hang on to. As you can see, I'm almost getting to the end here. I only have a few more to go. Kind of adjust them as you go. Oops. And sometimes you're going to hit some of these with the pins, so that's going to snag you up, so you kind of want to work around that too. And make sure your loops are in order. You're not crossing any of them, you're not twisting any of them. That's definitely really important. You don't want all this to look twisted. So kind of look how it's coming off of the base where you attached them to the handle. Like this one, I'm going to twist that way, looks better. And I've got 3 more to go. And my last one. There you go. So last thing you want to do is you want to pick it up. There's my finished bouquet almost. So now I'm going to pull these down just a little bit, kind of get them into position, make sure my ribbons are tucked up in the right spots, that I don't have any spots that are hanging down that shouldn't be hanging down. Pull these down a little bit. Just make all those just go around and around and around. Tuck stuff in. Pull these down just a little. Pull some of these down. Again, it's not too touchy. I mean, they're delicate, but they're not, you can definitely handle them a little bit. So round and round, you make sure it looks good. I think it looks nice. I can pull these down in position just a little bit more. Give it a little bit more of a domed shape. Back on its head it goes. You can make sure looking at it this way, it's nice and straight. The ribbons, I kind of, because they have the wires, I sort of just do this little crinkle thing. Just really easily here. Kind of pull them out loosely so when you hold it up, they kind of have this little crinkled look. Or you can do them smooth. So there's, it's whatever somebody's idea is. So there's the finished bouquet. I hope you learned something. And if you're trying to make your own bouquet and you have problems with it, I'm happy to help you with anything. Please email me at Marie, M-A-R-I-E, at Lionsgate Designs. That's Lions, L-I-O-N-S, Gate Designs. And you can check out my website at lionsgatedesigns.com. You can also check out my Etsy site, which is Lionsgate Designs on Etsy. Hope you had a good time. Bye-bye.